Back on the road again. Yes, I know it's been a month since the last episode. I've been extremely busy with other projects and I have not had much time for this project, unfortunately. Also, the weather has been surprisingly uncooperative for July. We've had rain, we've had thunder, we've had lightning, we've had hail. I have not seen hailstorms like that in a very long time. But check this out, guys. It is absolutely beautiful out today. The sun is shining, the birds are singing, the river is flowing. We're back in the mountains, and I finally have some free time this weekend. So, let's talk about two words in the German language that are confusingly similar. The two words we're going to look at today are Sitzen und Setzen. The equivalent words in English are sit and set. Now, in both languages, you can see that these two words are very similar in spelling and pronunciation. And they do overlap a little bit in meaning, as we're going to look at in this episode. But they are not interchangeable, and if you use the wrong one in the wrong way, it can be kind of embarrassing. As I found out the hard way fairly recently. We'll talk about that as well. So, let's talk about Sitzen und Setzen. Das hier ist Lernen und Fahren. Let's start with a pop quiz. How many ways are there to say, you should sit down in German? Think about that one. I'll give you a couple seconds to think about that one. This seems like a pretty straightforward translation, right? Well, okay, let's start with the easy one. Du solltest sitzen. You should sit. Okay, that's pretty easy. But how about du solltest dich setzen? Okay, if setzen means to set, then aren't we really saying there, you should set yourself? Okay, well, in English you could say, I'm going to set myself down on that tree stump over there so I can appreciate the beauty of nature. So, maybe that's not a terribly common usage in English, but you could get away with it. In German, you can also say, du solltest dich hinsetzen. What is hinsetzen? Well, that's another way of saying sit, more in the sense of like sit down. You should sit down. Okay, then how about du solltest dich niedersetzen? Niedersetzen is not terribly common in German, but it's another way of saying sit down. Or how about du solltest niedersitzen? Niedersitzen is another way of saying sit down. But notice that one is not reflexive. We don't say du solltest dich niedersitzen, you just say du solltest niedersitzen. Okay, there's probably more that are not on this list. There's a bunch of ways to say this in German. Now, let's take a quick look at setzen, because this most closely matches to the English word set. Set seems like a very simple word. It's only 3 letters long. But someone once told me, and I kind of agree with this, that set is one of the most complicated words in the English language because it has a bunch of possible definitions, both as a noun and a verb. Setzen is similar in German, and then it can mean a bunch of different things. Now, it can be used in some of the same ways that we can use it in English. For example, you could say, ich werde es auf Null setzen. I will set it to 0, or I will zero it out. Okay, you can say, ich werde einen Frist setzen. Frist is a deadline, so I will set a deadline. We use the same word set in English to mean that, to have that meaning. Okay, wir werden Grenzen setzen. We will set boundaries. Okay, again in English we use set to match the German setzen. But there's some usages of this in German that are a bit unusual compared to English. For example, oh shoot, that guy was waiting to cross. Sorry guys. The verb wetten in German means to wager or to bet. You can say, ich wette darauf, I'll bet on it. Another way to say that in German is to use auf etwas setzen, which means literally, if we consider setzen to mean like to set, then it would literally mean to set on something, which, does that mean anything in English? You can say, ich setze $5 darauf. I set $5 on it. You wouldn't say that in English, I don't think. You might use the word put in English. I'll put $5 on it, meaning like I'll bet $5 on it. But I think it's more common in English to use bet, just as a verb. I'll bet $5 on it. Now, if you were paying attention earlier when we were talking about sitting down, you might remember that one of the options was du solltest dich setzen. But doesn't that mean you should bet on it? Well, no, because we're using it reflexively. This is the mistake that I made fairly recently. I was in a conversation and what I wanted to say was, I'll bet on it. And I was serious. And I said, ich setze mich darauf. And I got a laugh, which is the worst thing in the world to hear when you're a language learner, because immediately I thought to myself, oh, okay, what did I say wrong this time? Ich setze mich darauf means I'll sit on it, because I used it reflexively. Sich auf etwas setzen does not mean the same as auf etwas setzen. One of those means to sit on something, the other means to bet on something. What I wanted to say there was, ich setze darauf, I'll bet on it. So we can see that using a verb reflexively or not can drastically change the meaning of the resulting sentence, and you gotta watch that because it's easy to embarrass yourself as I did. Now, just for fun, since we're out here and since I've got a little bit of time today, let's talk about what happens when we add separable verb prefixes to these two verbs. We've talked about verb prefixes in German many times on this channel, how they can change the meaning of a verb, sometimes subtly and sometimes drastically, and sitzen und setzen are excellent examples of this. I'm not going to go through every single one because there's a bunch of them and I'd be out here all day, but we can cherry pick a few of these and just talk about how these verb prefixes can change the meanings of these words and how we can see the meaning of the words diverge from each other. They no longer even come close to each other. Let's start with ab. What happens when we put ab on these two verbs? Absetzen means to put something down. In English, you can also say set something down. I'm setting this thing down. Ich setze dieses Ding ab. Okay, we can see for each one of these examples, I'm going to try to relate it back to English, how setzen usually translates to set and how sitzen usually translates to sit, but not always, as we'll see. Absetzen is a good one to set something down or to put something down. Okay, great. But absitzen means to serve time in the context of like a prison sentence. Let's say I rob a bank and I get convicted. I can say, ich sitze meine Zeit ab. It doesn't mean I'm putting my time down. It means I'm serving my time in prison. But what does that have to do with sitting? I guess I'm sitting in prison? I don't really know. How about an? What happens when we use an? Ansetzen means to schedule something. In English, you might say we're going to set an appointment. Again, we see the word set matches nicely to the German setzen. Ansetzen means to set an appointment. Okay, great. What about ansitzen? Well, this one's not very common in German, but from what I can tell, it means to sit on watch, like a hunter waiting for prey to come by, or a soldier on guard duty, maybe? I don't know. How about auf? Aufsetzen means to put something on, specifically like something on your head, a hat or a wig or a helmet. Ich setze meinen Hut auf. I put my helmet on. In English, you could say I set my helmet on top of my head. That would be a very odd way of phrasing it in English, but you can see, again, the relation between set and setzen. Aufsetzen is to put something on your head or to set something on your head. Okay, but how about aufsitzen? I can't remember what Aufsitzen means. I gotta check my notes. I forgot. All right, I gotta pull over and check my notes. What does Aufsitzen mean? Aufsitzen. Aufsitzen. I can't remember that one. To sit on something? Aufsitzen means to mount something, to mount a horse. Of course I remember that now. But what about Aufsitzen? What does that mean? Well, this in German means to mount, specifically in the context of like horseback riding. Ich sitze mein Pferd aus. I mount my horse. But with a direct accusative object, aussetzen can mean something else. It can mean to suspend or abandon something. And with a direct accusative object, aussitzen can also mean something else. It means to ride something out in the sense of like waiting and hoping for the best. Now, I'm trying to think how you could use set and sit here. I'm kind of drawing a blank. The closest I can get with etwas aussitzen is, there's an expression in English, sit tight. Like, just sit tight and things will get better. That's maybe kind of loose, but it does sort of equate to the German use of sit there. How about ein? Einsetzen can mean to deploy something or to appoint someone to a position. So, like for example, in a game of chess, I'm putting my queen on the board. I'm deploying my queen. Okay, you can say I'm setting my queen onto the board. Okay, fine. But how about einsitzen? Einsitzen literally is to sit in. And what that means in German is like, ich sitze heute Abend ein. Means I'm sitting in tonight. I'm not going out. I'm not going anywhere. How about vor? Jemandem etwas vorsetzen means to serve someone something. Like, I don't know, a waitress in a restaurant might set something before you. Ich setze jemandem etwas vor. I set it before him. That sounds very old-fashioned in English, but it basically means I'm serving it to him. Okay. Etwas vorsitzen is to preside over something. This one's kind of interesting. Ich sitze diesem Gericht vor. I preside over this court. How does that relate to sit? Well, in English you can refer to a judge sitting on the bench. That's a bit of a stretch. You can also in English refer to a sitting president. What does that mean? Does it mean he's literally sitting down? No, it means he's in power. The current president is the sitting president in English. That kind of links up nicely to the German use of Vorsitzen, to preside over. Now, there are also some prefixes that only, I think, work with the verb setzen. I couldn't find equivalent usages of sitzen for these ones. For example, freisetzen. This equates very nicely to English, to set something free. Ich setze meinen Hund frei. I'm setting my dog free. Great. How about versetzen? This is a weird one. This means to relocate someone or to transfer someone. Like, ich wurde in meine Firma versetzt. I was transferred within my company. How do you use set for that one in German? In English, I mean. I don't know. How does that equate to set in English? Well, it kind of doesn't. I'm being set into a different department in my company, I guess? I don't know. That's a stretch. How about übersetzen? This is one of my least favorite German words because the literal meaning just says nothing to me. Über means over, and setzen, if we take setzen to mean set, it literally means that we're setting something over. But this word, by the way, means translate. Ich kann das für Sie übersetzen. I can set that over for you is what we're literally saying there. But what we're actually saying is, I can translate that for you. Okay, my mental image of this one, it's probably wrong, but my mental image of this one is, I've got a sentence in this language and I want to set it over the language barrier into that other language. So I'm going to übersetze it. That's kind of clunky, setting something over a language barrier. Okay. There's also a word in German, darübersetzen. That seems like it should be a variant of the word translate, but it isn't at all. It means to superimpose. I guess I'm putting this thing, this image, this photo on top of another image or photo. I'm superimposing it onto that. You can also say daraufsetzen, which makes a little more sense. I'm setting this thing on top of that thing. So I feel like we just barely scratched the surface of these two words. They look very simple in both languages, but they are surprisingly deep in their meanings, especially in German. Once you get into the separable verb prefixes, we barely scratched the surface of that. There's a bunch of them. I would stay out here all afternoon if I could, talking about those other prefixes, but time's a-wasting. So that's all for today. We will see you next time on Lernen und Fragen.